Well, hey folks, 4 out of 6 wives died mysteriously, and today this guy faces murder charges in Las Vegas, Nevada. I mean, is this the most unlucky guy on the planet, or did these women choose a killer for a companion? Hey, thanks for joining Profiling Evil. We're talking about the ongoing murder trial of Thomas Randolph down in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a do-over because the court decided that a previous murder conviction, which included the death penalty, shouldn't have discussed one particular case. Now, if you're confused, Thomas Randolph has been tried for murder 2 times before the trial that he's in right now. The first time happened in Utah, and that ended in an acquittal. And the last wife's death ended with a conviction that eventually was overturned. So now the state of Nevada is hoping they can get it right and put this guy away for good. I hope you'll take a minute, hit that like and subscribe button, and ring the bell, and do everything you need to do to make sure you're getting notifications on videos like this one. Now, when you hit that notification button, it should make you the first to know. So please ring the bell, hit the notification button. So we're talking about Thomas Randolph, who was convicted of murdering his 6th wife, and of course also murdering the hitman that prosecutors claim he hired to kill his wife. You see, according to that conviction, which ended up in the death penalty, this all happened after he convinced his handyman to murder his wife. And then, to clean up things so nobody could talk about it, he ended up killing his handyman. He was convicted of this, so we can say that. Except for, I guess it's a little bit sticky because the court threw it out and said that they never should have brought in a previous homicide trial where he was acquitted, but also that woman died, his 2nd wife died of a gunshot wound, and he attempted to kill the alleged hitman that he tried to hire to do that work. Well, immediately after the hitman in wife number 6 killed his wife Sharon, Randolph apparently shot Miller multiple times, killing him. So here's the deal. Immediately after killing Randolph's wife Sharon, Mike Miller starts to leave the home, and Randolph himself then shoots multiple times the man he hired as a hitman. And this is all according to prosecution, killing him. So he was charged and found guilty and convicted of killing for the murder of his wife and killing the hitman, but that was overturned because the state brought in the old criminal case. Now, Randall's conviction was overturned in 2020, and it all was because the defense successfully argued that the previous murder trial from Utah back in 1986, and that was the death of his 2nd wife, and it gets a little convoluted here, so I'm going to try to clean all this up, should never have been introduced in the trial of wife number 6's death. The Nevada Supreme Court agreed and sent the case back to be retried. Well, the prosecution argued that the similarities from that 1986 murder with his 2nd wife, a woman named Becky Gault, and his 6th wife, Sharon Causse, in 2008 were very similar. But keep in mind, of the 6 women who married Randolph, this is 6 women over the course of his life outside of prison, 4 of the 6 women died unexpectedly. Now, that's really kind of interesting. 4 died, and one of the 2 surviving wives ended up testifying against him in court, testifying that the accused killer also tried to kill her. Now, it seems that marriage never ended well for this guy, and it clearly hasn't ended well for 4 of 6 wives. 67% of his wives end up dying mysteriously, 2 of them by gunshot. Well, in 1983, Randolph married his 2nd wife. So we're going to talk about his 1st wife in a second here. But in 1983, he marries his 2nd wife, a woman named Becky Gault. and the couple lived in Clearfield, Utah, which is really close to where I live. It's important to point out that Randolph married Gault on the day of his divorce from his first wife. The day his divorce was finalized, he ended up marrying Becky Gault. 3 years later, Becky would be dead. Randolph claims that he came home from work and found her lying on their waterbed with a gun near her head and a gunshot wound in the head. He claims that she committed suicide, and initially, investigators agreed. But very soon, they turned that case around and charged him with murder. The prosecution claimed that Randolph actually murdered Becky in order to get her life insurance policy. In fact, Randolph reportedly received $250,000 when Becky died. Now, when I looked it up on an inflation calculator in today's money, that's equivalent to $700,000 in today's money. Which brings me to my first question that I hope you folks will all weigh in on. It's really a two-part question, I suppose, because the first question centers around simple finances. Here's the reasoning behind this thought. At the time that Becky Gault died, the couple was in dire financial circumstances. Remember, they've been married 3 years at this point. Online reports suggested by Becky's family members state that the couple didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. Their electricity had been turned off because they couldn't pay their electrical bill. So here's my first question, folks. Do you think it's reasonable that the Randolphs would pay for life insurance when they can't even pay for living expenses and can't even pay for their utilities? I hope you'll put your answers down below, because that's my first question on this. Now, the second question is a little more direct in regard to this thing, and so I'm going to set the stage. Back in 1986, I was in my 30s. I was married. I had children at home. I was working a full-time job, and my wife and I felt that it was important that I have life insurance in case something happened to me. I was a police officer, and that's a pretty high-risk job. And we wanted to make sure that there was money for her and the children in the event that I happened to die early. The reality was, if I died, my spouse would need the money to help raise kids. But we chose not to get life insurance for my wife, because if she died, I would still have my income and a way to keep going along. So here's my second question for all of you. Do you find it odd that Randolph's wife had life insurance given their dire financial circumstance that we talked about earlier? And I'm wondering if anyone ever looked into whether he had life insurance as well. Made sure that she had it, though, didn't he? In fact, it ended up netting him $250,000. I'd like you to think about your own circumstance. Would you have gotten life insurance for both of you if only one was working and the other was a primary caretaker? Put your answer down below. And as you do so, keep in mind that the media reports suggest that every one of Randolph's wives had hefty life insurance policies. You can catch my comments on Court TV as we talked about this, and I want to just go to those.
Oh, money as the alleged motivation. What do we think about this, Courties? Tweet us, let us know. I want to bring back in my guest, retired police commander, the host of the Profiling Evil podcast. Be sure to check it out. Mike King is standing by. And in South Carolina, retired solicitor and SLED agent. He famously prosecuted Susan Smith. We all loved watching him in action. Tommy Pope on the show as well. Commander King, money as motivation for murder. Imagine that. How solid do you think this is, Commander?
Oh, I'll tell you what. Well, number one, I'm still scratching my head how this guy was able to get that original case pushed back and closed off so that nobody could access it. Money is the key from the beginning, going back to '86 on wife number 2 in my home state. Just in fact, a few miles from my home in Clearfield, where that first homicide occurred. and that he was acquitted of, and got to make sure I put that in, that he was acquitted of that. I knew the prosecutors, I knew the defense attorneys very well, but every time he benefited financially. And if the Dateline or the NBC video is accurate, he eventually makes more than $2 million off of these women that he's married to. And by golly, this has got to be the most unlucky guy in the world to have 4 of his 6 wives that die. It just seems like it's awfully suspicious.
Oh, absolutely. And Mike, thank you for making the distinction, too, that it was in Utah. 1986 was when he went to trial for the death of wife number 2, Becky Gault. And you're right, money was the alleged motivation there. Even though he was acquitted, we know prosecutors put in evidence that apparently that was the motivation to murder Becky, a payout.
In fact, in an NBC documentary titled The Widower, they say that Randolph actually profited nearly $2 million from all of his wives in totality, both in absconded funds of things while they were living and in life insurance monies that were gathered after their deaths. Policies like the one he got from his wife, Frances, who died after heart surgery in 2004. Now, Frances's daughter would testify in court that this is during the last trial for wife number 6, that Randolph didn't allow her to see her mother after she had that heart surgery. She was in the recovery room, and Randolph said he needed to be alone with her in the room. He went in by himself and later walked out and said she had unexpectedly died. Randolph not only collected the life insurance policy that he had on her, but he also went after the hospital, suing them and collecting money for something from the hospital. Really interesting. So, to make this worse, Randolph even refused to have the daughter attend her mother's funeral. And he had her remains cremated really quickly. In fact, I've read reports that suggest that the family ended up getting her ashes delivered to them in separate little pill bottle containers. Can you imagine that? But I do remember the Becky Gault case pretty darn well. I personally knew the prosecutor in the case. I personally knew the defense attorneys in that case, and I knew the investigators involved, including those who were later sued by Randolph for another attempt at money. In that particular case, though, the defense was successful in creating doubt in the jury's mind, and Randolph was acquitted of murder. 2 years later, a former co-worker of Randolph's went to police and told him that Randolph had plotted Gault's murder. In fact, he said that he was offered money by Randolph to be the hitman to kill her, but when he backed out, Randolph tried to have him murdered, mistakenly hiring an undercover police officer to complete the task. Randolph even paid the cop $2,000 to kill the alleged hitman. He was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, and that charge was reduced to felony witness tampering, sending Randolph off to prison. Again, acquitted of murder, and he took a plea deal that put him in prison for a while. Well, let's fast forward now to 2008, when Randolph's sixth wife was murdered by their former handyman, a guy named Michael Miller. And then, of course, Miller was murdered by Randolph. Randolph charged with murder of both his wife, number 6, Sharon, and her killer, Mike Miller. That ended up in a death penalty case, and he was convicted and sent to death row. But the case was overturned, and now we're starting a new trial for the murders. And one of the things that I think the prosecution should really focus on this time around is that reenactment of the video that Randolph did. Not only for the investigators' video that was created, but one that he also did for NBC later as part of their documentary. And I hope that you'll weigh in your comments after you hear mine.
Mike King, I want to play a video for you to look at it and analyze this guy, and we're going to talk on the other side of it. This is where he gives his interview to Dateline, and he is so bold and brazen, just walking and talking and pointing in different directions. How he says the whole ambush with the masked intruder went down.
Now this door was closed. I open it up. I get right here, and Sharon's laying in the floor, face down. Her head's just barely in the bedroom, if that. And I stopped right about here. I had the door. I said, Sharon! Sharon! And I seen the bag from charcoal steak or whatever, and it's really a bright red. And this hall light wasn't on at the time. I thought I just seen like a shadow or something over this way. And I remembered that there's the 9mm right up here, because earlier I'd taken all my guns, put them in a suitcase, was going to take them to Utah and switch the guns around to run, and then I just reached up just like that, grabbed it, stuck it in my pocket, came around just like that, and about that time he's right up on me. Kind of rushed up on me a little bit, and that's when I just pushed him, and boom, 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 and he started going out toward the shed. I don't know how many times I shot him, but I just kept right on going. Boom! 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 And he's just laying there.
Commander, pick this apart for us, please. You're shaking your head. Yeah. Talk to us, Mike.
Pick it apart. Okay, let me go. Number one, if you're that scared, are you going to put your gun in your pocket? That really bugged me. Aren't you going to run to your wife who's laying on the ground? That really bugs me. The idea that he's this hero is going to be something I think they need to really focus on. It's all about him. It had nothing to do with her.
I love it, Mike. Yeah, you're right. You know, the gun in the pocket, you know, Tommy Pope, you've served in law enforcement as well. You know, drawing, you got to be quick, right? You're in a situation where your life could be in danger, your wife's life's in danger. And like Commander said, sticks the gun in his pocket first.
I don't know if he enjoyed the actual crime more or the reenactment more, but he seems to be having a large time. And he is clearly one of his biggest fans.
Well, I really hope this is a case that you're going to go down the rabbit hole on and weigh in with all of your opinions on what might have happened. I think it bears mention again that Thomas Randolph married 6 times. His wives were, number one, Kathryn Thomas, who married Randolph when she was 18 years old. The marriage ended rather quickly because of psychological abuse, at least reportedly psychological abuse. Now, she left the area because she claims that Randolph was threatening her husband with death, her new husband. His next wife was Becky Gault, who died from a gunshot wound in 1986, and we talked about that case. His third wife was Gayna Allmon, who testified against him in the last trial, stating that she believed that Randolph also was trying to kill her during their marriage. And that in that particular case, he was sitting next to her cleaning a weapon, a handgun, when it went off, narrowly missing her. Now, he said it was an accident, a discharge during cleaning the gun. She believes it was a homicide attempt. His fourth wife, Frances Randolph, died after having heart surgery. And we talked about her for a moment. Wife number 5, Leona Stapleton, apparently, and according to all reports, died of cancer. And there's nothing to suggest other than that. And then wife number 6, Sharon Causse, who died by gunshot from Michael Miller, who ultimately was shot and killed by Randolph. And you can watch this trial live on Court TV as it unfolds this week. And I'd encourage you to do so. And make sure you're watching for the segments by my buddy Matt Johnson, and get those, because he's down there in person. I hope I can get Matt to come up to Utah and go to the site of Randolph's first murder charge that resulted in that acquittal. But But one thing to keep in mind is that this time around, the state's not looking for the death penalty. The state of Nevada isn't going to pursue that, and most analysts believe that it's going to make it easier for him to get a conviction and just lock this guy away for the rest of his life. The idea is that he's gotten away with murder in the past, and he shouldn't get away with murder this time. So what are your thoughts on this one, folks? Do you think Randolph is ever going to be convicted? Or will he even have court proceedings go his way or against him in the future? I'm going to be watching for your answers down below. And as you're thinking about this one, let's catch some of the comments I made this morning with Julie Grand as she asked me a very similar question.
This guy, I wonder if he really thinks he's got a chance or if he's just got nothing better to do than roll the dice at this point in time. You know, he's staying locked up, even with the reversal of the conviction, the sentence, all of it being vacated, the case being remanded, sent back down to the trial court. He's still behind bars, thankfully, so nobody is at risk. But Mike King, do you think he has a shot here at convincing this jury the second time around, now that the evidence about him going to trial for the death of wife number 2 is not going to come in?
I think the prosecution really has to focus on the facts of the case and maybe the behavior of the case more importantly, Julie. If you watch the videos, just the video of the reenactment where he tries to make himself out as this big hero going down the hallway, I would continue to pound on the fact to the jury that, listen, how many of you would really go through all these measures, or would you run to your loved one's side first thinking, holy cow, why have they fallen down? There's nothing that talks about the fact that he's out in the vehicle in the driveway waiting, lets her go in first. And I don't have a problem with the fact that the garage might be a little smaller and that he lets his wife out so that he can pull the car in closer to the passenger side door. But what I do have a real problem with is that he's not getting, in my opinion, over the hump with why doesn't he run to his wife's side first? Why doesn't he work on CPR? I think the rest of us would be focused more on that and have tunnel vision and not be saying, I'm going to go clear this house like a commando and then I'm going to go on TV and show everybody how great I was.
Yeah, exactly. I love how you said that, Mike King. Thank you for that. Stand by, please.
Well, there you go, folks. Please make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button and that you're ringing the bell so that you get all of our notifications on videos just like this one. I hope that you're checking out Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And please consider checking out Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. You know, you can always donate to Profiling Evil on our webpage at profilingevil.com or through PayPal. And you might consider joining our channel memberships as a way to support our efforts financially. Your support is really meaningful, so thank you. It's the only way we're able to keep Profiling Evil going. So thanks again, folks. And we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.